Okay, it's time to start our training. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Global Gray Online Training 2021. This is the trainer from Gray Training Department. My name is Liu. Okay, so for today's training topic is GMV controller for GMV5 and GMV6. Okay, I hope you can get some useful information from this presentation. So actually for the GMV5 and GMV6, the controller, there are three types: wired controller, remote controller, and central controller. And actually, for the wired controller, there are many types, such as the standard and some optional controller. So for example, here is the summary table you can find. The first one, XK46, this is the basic standard wired controller for GMV5 and 6. And the second one is a small size optional, which means you can choose this if the customer, they want a small size. However, the thickness is also thicker. I mean, it's thinner. The third one is XK55. This is a touchscreen wired controller. So actually for this one, the operation is much convenient for the customer. Next one, XK79, is a hotel controller, which means this has a keycard function and is really good for the hotel project. The last one, XK86, that's another optional wired controller. In my opinion, actually for these two wired controller, that's the most common types, and this one is also very useful. So if you look at the wired controller in this area, you can see about 36 icons for different running modes and status, and here is the buttons. Okay. So if you say the display, there are many different areas, such as here, that's the running mode, and at the bottom, that's function area, swing, fan speed, and the timer. So actually, this is all of the icon you can find in the display area. Okay, and this three icon stands for the fresh air, ERV. ERV. Okay, this is the auto mode, cooling, dry mode, fan speed, fan mode, heating mode. This is floor heating, and this is space heating. Okay, and here is the temperature area. You can change the unit between Celsius and Fahrenheit. And here is the time, the clock area. Okay, this is sleep function is activated. This is the fresh air. There's a quiet backlight. Okay, this backlight, and this is health, and this is absence. Okay, for all of these functions, I will introduce them later. This is keycard, and this is child lock, energy saving, slave wired controller, operation invalid, and master, memory, group control, shield, defrosting status, fresh air, X-fan. And you can also find in the remote is the turbo, turbo run, e-heater, and clean, field clean, a reminder. This is another energy saving. Okay, so actually for some special icon, we have to understand what the meaning is it. So this icon is the saving mode, which means you can set the lower limit and the upper limit for cooling and heating. Okay, the max is for the maximum temperature limit for heating. And this one is lower temperature limit for cooling or for the dehumidifier. That means if you set the upper limit and the lower limit, then the customer, they cannot change as they wish because there is a limit, so that to avoid some very low or very high temperature setting. Okay, this is the first one, saving mode. And this is another saving mode. You can see the icon is different. And actually for this saving mode, it's just limited the highest capacity output for the auto unit. You know, for auto units, there are frequency, right? So actually for this saving mode, if you set it, you can choose 100% output, 90% or 80%, so that the auto units can limit the frequency of the compressor to reduce the power consumption. And this is quiet mode. Okay. And this one is the absence function. And if you are familiar with the UMatch, you know there is 8-degree heating, right? 8-degree heating for the winter to avoid some freezing in the room. And this is also the same for the VIF. And this icon is the group. If you use the wired controller, control multiple indoor units, and then you need to set the actual quantities for that controller, how many indoor units you want to control for one wired controller. And this is the code P14. You can operate by the wired controller to set this code to to set the value. Okay, if not, may cause some error display and some malfunction. And this one is the slave controller. For example, when you use two controllers, controlling one indoor unit or multiple indoor units, so that there are two controllers, one should be the master wired controller, another one should be a slave. They cannot be the master simultaneously. So how to set the wired controller to slave? You can use the P13 to change the the status of that controller. If you set a slave controller, this icon will be on, will be displayed to remind you this is the slave wired controller. Actually, for the customer, the master wired controller and the slave wired controller, basically they are the same, just some setting, engineering setting and checking. You can only operate on the master wired controller. That's the only difference. And next one, shield. And this is when you use the central controller or the remote monitoring software, you know, there are many shield operations such as shield on-off, running mode, temperature change, or timer. If you set this kind of shield in the central controller, then the corresponding wired controller will show this icon. That means this wired controller is shielded by the central controller. Some operation may be invalid. Okay. So the previous pages, there are some introduction of the icons. So when you do the wiring of the controller, there are many choices, such as one wired controller, control one indoor unit, as shown on this slide. This is the basic wiring method, one control one to one. H1, H2 terminal, this is for the wired controller. However, you can also use the other wiring method, such as double controllers, control one indoor unit. Okay, and so in this case, one controller should be the master, right? Another one should be the slave, right? So if there are two master, the units will show the CP error code. If double slave, will also cause communication error. So one master and one slave wide controller. That's the correct setting by the P13. And this is the wiring for one controller, control multiple indoor units, right? It's very easy. You can just connect one controller to the H1, H2 terminal to one indoor unit, and the others you can just hook them by the cable together. And the maximum quantity is 16 indoor units. You can control for only one wireless controller. This is the double controllers, control multiple indoor units. It's very similar. One master, one slave, and hook them by the H1, H2 terminal together. And just to remember, the maximum quantity is the 16 indoor units. Do not exceed the limit. Okay. The next one is the master indoor unit setting. For the VIF, heat pump, VIF, there are many indoor units. Maybe some user, they choose the cooling. Some user, they want to choose the heating. So in this case, it may cause the mode conflicts, right? For the heat pump, there are just the two copper pipes, gas and liquid pipe, and this unit can just run cooling or heating for one time, right? It cannot do the heat recovery. So in order to avoid these kinds of mode conflicts, there is a function. We call it master. If you set the master indoor unit, that means the operation mode on this indoor unit will be the priority. Yeah. If this master indoor unit run cooling, the others should follow it. If this master running heating, the others should be heating. It cannot change to the mode conflict status. Okay. And when you set the master indoor unit, press this button, mode, for 5 seconds, then this icon will be on. This means the setting is successful. And sometimes maybe our engineer and technician, they want to check some parameter from the wire controller. You can use this method. This is the operation for the engineer, for our after sales, for our technician. Press this function button 5 seconds. Press and hold for 5 seconds, and then you can see here there will be show you a C00. C means checking. Yeah, checking. Then you can press up and down button to change the parameter. Then if you want to exit this page, press here, enter or cancel to return to the previous page. This is the user parameter checking. For the user parameter setting, the operation is very similar. Press function button for 5 seconds. Okay, then press this function and hold for another 5 seconds. Okay, 5 seconds, another 5 seconds, and then you can see the code display here is changed from C to P. I think P stands for program. Yeah, program. That means now you can change the setting of the VIF in this menu. Use up and down button to change the parameter. Okay, the previous two operations is for the user. User parameter checking, user parameter setting. And for that two operation, the code is very few, not a lot. Yeah. However, in the engineering parameter query, you can find more information by this method. Okay, press function button for 5 seconds, and then press the mod 3 times within 5 seconds, which means you can you have to hear the sound. You just press 1, 2, 3 times, and then there will be beep. That means your operation is okay, it's good. And then you can see here also display C00. However, in this page now you can find more code, setting codes, checking codes in this page. Yeah. Okay, press up and down to change, to select the parameter. And here is the parameter codes you can find in engineering setting, engineering checking. Yeah. This is the upper limit ratio of indoor units and outdoor units. Okay, it's a historic error. You can find five error codes for the history at most. C02, that's the quantity of indoor units. C04, that's project number of master indoor units. Yeah, you can find the address of that indoor unit. And next one is the historical error for the indoor units checking. And this one's for outdoor units. This is for indoor units. They are different. And next one is the ESP setting. Okay. And next one is the project number of outdoor units. Yeah. Sometimes maybe you need to check the address of that outdoor unit. And this is the tube in temperature sensor of indoor. And this is tube out of temperature value of indoor unit. Okay, for this true value is very useful for some analysis, especially about the cooling or heating performance. You need to know what is the value for the indoor evaporation or condensation, so that you can judge where is the problem, right? The next one is the expansion valve opening of indoor. You can check the actual opening degree of this indoor unit. Next one is the N7 parameter checking of outdoor units. Yeah, outdoor units. And for outdoor units, there are many parameters such as the frequency, current, pressure, temperature for discharge. Yeah. So you can find more information in the N7, this code. Next one is 6, that's the cooling or heating function. You can find this unit is in the cooling setting or heating setting or fan setting or heat pump setting. Maybe some engineer, they just shield cooling in winter or shield heating in summer. Yeah, you can find the actual setting for the running mode. Okay, next one is the engineering parameter setting. The operation is like this. Press function button 5 seconds, and then press the mode 3 times within 5 seconds, and then press the function button for another 5 seconds. Okay, it's a little bit how to say that? Just remember 5 seconds function and 3 times mode and another 5 seconds function. Okay, then you can see the P00. And in this page, you can get more parameter setting. And this is for the engineering, so it's more useful, more powerful than the user setting. So now we introduce some useful setting code. First one, P13, wireless controller address setting. Okay, this is for the master wireless controller or slave wireless controller. Yeah, if you use two controllers, control one Indo unit or multiple Indo units, one controller is the master, another is a slave. If you set the slave, you can see this icon is displayed on the LED, right? 01 means master, 02 means slave. Okay. Next one, P14. This is for the when you use one controller or two controllers, control multiple Indo units, right? And here, this value is the quantities you want to control by that controller. Okay, and the range is from 0 to 16. Okay, how many Indo units you connect, and you just set the same value in this page, so that the controller can send the signal to the Indo units you want to control to command them correctly. Okay. However, if you forgot to set the value in P14, and you can see error 9. Error line error code will be displayed on the controller. That means the value is not correct for the actual quantity. Okay. After the setting, this icon will be on group. Next one, P30. That's the static pressure setting for Indo units, especially for the duct type. When you install them and connect with the duct to supply the air for different room or different area. And in this case, in order to overcome the resistance of the duct, you have to change the ESP, right? So in this code P30, you can set the ESP stage by different value. Okay, and this one, the middle, 05, that's the default. Okay, you can set the longer duct length. You can just improve this value. However, maybe sometimes the ESP for that duct is too high and cause some noise. You may just lower down the ESP to a smaller value. Okay, and actually P30 is very useful for the VIF, and not only for duct, but also to change the fan speed so that you can just make the performance, the air conditioning performance better. Yeah, also about the noise complaints, to change the value, to troubleshoot that. Next one is the P37. That's the cooling setting temperature in auto mode. Okay, you know, in auto mode, the cooling temperature is default, right? However, you can adjust the temperature setting in auto mode, range between 17 to 30 Celsius. Okay. P38, that's the heating setting temperature in auto mode, and range is 16 to 29 Celsius degree. However, just remember that the cooling setting temperature minus heating setting temperature should be higher than 1 degree. Yeah, they cannot be the same. Next one, P46, accumulated time clearing for the filter. You know, for the VIF wireless controller, you can set the filter reminder, right? Because the at the beginning, you install the duct or the cassette. However, after long time running, the filter may be dirty, may be jammed, and cause some air conditioning performance problem. So at the beginning, you can set the reminder time. And then after the time reached, there will be a clean icon display and blink on the wire controller to remind you to clean the filter. And then you need to clear the filter reminder P46. Okay, the default 00 means not clear. And that's icon, that's clean. Icon will blink to remind you, and then you just change the value to 01 to clear the reminder. Yeah. Next one, P15, power down memory mode. This is for the memory function. The default setting is standby after power down recovery. Yeah. So power linear and power recover, and the units will be standby. That's the default setting. However, you can just change the memory function to restore the original status after power down. Okay, if you set this one, the previous status, for example, is cooling, and then the power recovery, the units will start the cooling automatically. It will remember the previous running mode and restore the previous status. Okay. Next one, P20. This is the environment temperature sensor selection for indoor unit. For the VIF indoor unit, there are to detect the ambient, there are two sensors. One is in the wire controller here, in the wire controller. Another one is located at the air return, at the duct. The duct, the air return. So you can, depends on your installation and the actual demands of the customer. Maybe they want to detect the ambience more precise, so you can just change the sensor's location. The default one is the air return for cooling and wire controller for heating. That's the default one. However, you can just change to no matter cooling or heating. Both of these conditions, the units use the air return for the ambient temperature detecting, or just the wire controller, or just the opposites the detecting air return for heating and wire controller for cooling. For heating and cooling, because of the density of the hot air, right, may cause some, the detection of the ambience may be not precise. You can just change the location of that sensor to detect more precise and to make the air conditioning more comfortable. Next one, P21, correction value for ambient temperature sensor of indoor units. That means you can just use this function to correct, to modify the room temperature detecting. If you think, for example, in this room, the cooling performance is too cold, right? It's too cold. You can just change the ambience. Not change, you can just modify the ambient temperature sensor to modify the value so that the control will, the air conditioning control will be more, will be better for the customer feeling, right? This is for heating. The previous one is for cooling, humidify, and air supply. Okay. This one is for heating, P22. However, actually the function of these two codes, they are similar. One for cooling, one for heating. Next one, P40, prevention for heat connection. For some scenario, in order to avoid the overheat in some local area, such as high ceiling or some closed area, very close to the unit. Okay, so you can just activate P40 to prevent the heat connection. So how does this function works? So actually every 15 minutes, the fan will start to supply the air, to circulate the air, to avoid the heat connection in that area. And the default is disabled. Yeah, you can choose how long time the fan will start automatically to circulate the air, 10 seconds, 20, 30, and even 1 minute. Okay, this is the running time for every 15 minutes. The fan will start to circulate the air to avoid the accumulation of the heat. Next one, P42, indoor unit address setting. At the beginning of commissioning, every indoor unit, the address is set automatically. They are random. However, maybe you want to change the address for each indoor unit, you can use this code P42 to change the address of that indoor unit. Okay. And also sometimes if the address conflict in your VIF system, you can also use this one to clear the address conflict. Next one, P54. That's the linkage control for fresh air. For example, in your project, there are ordinary indoor units and fresh air indoor units, right? You can just use one controller, control them simultaneously. However, the default setting is no linkage control. You can just change to linkage control. So if you set this one, the controller will control the ordinary indoor units and the fresh air at the same time, right? Just to make them run synchronous. Next one, P69, gate control, signal setting. This is for the hotel keycard controller, XK79. For that keycard controller, there are different signal input of the keycard, right? And the default one is 220 volts gate control signal, high voltage. However, you can just choose different signal input terminal and select the setting here. Maybe no voltage, 5 to 12 volts, 12 to 24 volts, or 110 volts gate control signal. Depends on your actual project installation. Okay. Next one, P71, that's the setback function. For setback, that's a new function. Yeah, that's a new function. This is also for the XK79 keycard controller. So what is the setback function? For the hotel, project is a little bit special. When the customer they go out, they just take out card, right? And the unit's off, unit standby. But when the customer they return to the room, if no time, no running, the room will be a little bit hot in summer, right? So actually, in this case, the experience of the customer maybe not very good. So we developed a setback function. If you energize the setback function, when the customer they go out, the units will run automatically. If for example, in summer, the setting temperature drops lower than the setting, lower than the setback limit, lower limit temperature setting, the units will start automatically to make sure the room temperature will not be very hot, or in winter not be very cold, right? You can just consider it as how's that automatic run during the absence, yeah, especially for the hotel project. Okay, so that's the code introduction for the wire controller. Next one is about the other wire controllers, such as XK62. You can see the difference with the standard basic one and the optional one. The function is the same, just the size. Yeah, depends on the customer choice and also the decoration for the room. Okay. The other everything they are similar. Function, setting, operation similar. Okay, for this icon for XK62, this icon is also the same with the XK46. Okay, so for this part we don't talk too much. And next one, this is XK55 touch screen. You can see there are no visible button, only touch screen. Okay. This is another one, XK86. Okay. However, in this one, you can see the display is more is a little bit different, such as temperature running mode. The layout of the display is changed. And my friends, could you just mute your microphone? Okay, thank you. Next one is the hotel controller XK79. Yeah, you know the size is the same as the XK62. However, you know the internal is different.
Yeah.
When you hello, sorry, could you just mute microphone?
Ja sam sad to, evo sad ovo kad sam napravila print screen, tako sam i našla. Znači ovog trena.
Okay.
Jer vidi, nema tu ima broj telefona koji kad ukucaš piše Degree Electronics i imaš logo od Degree. Kad ukucaš ovaj broj telefona.
So if you disassemble the XK79 keycard controller, you can see for ordinary wireless controller, there are only H1, H2, right? Signal to the indoor unit. And for the keycard controller, there are two different signal inputs about the keycards. So this is the high voltage. This one is the high voltage. This is no voltage signal. And actually, you can see here, depends on your project choice and the installation. If you use the low voltage, you connect this one, GND and VCC, low voltage signal input terminal. If a high voltage, choose this one. Okay. However, however, you know, for the XK79, maybe the customer, they don't want to use the keycard function, and the default setting is enable. Switch on, the first dip switch on means enable. However, if they don't want the keycard function, they can just switch off the first one to disable. Okay, that's the difference, right, between the hotel keycard controller and the ordinary ordinary wise controller. So actually, for the keycard controller, the difference is there is a keycard function, right? So for the XK79, if the customer take out card, this icon will be on. That means the card is out, and the unit should be standby or turn off, right? This icon will show on the controller. And also for the error display in this area, you can see the error code. And then okay, this is the one controller introduction. The second part is wireless remote controller. Actually, at the moment, we have two different remote controllers. The first one, YAP1F, that's a standard remote controller. The second one is the optional with the debugging function. It's designed for the engineer and after-sales technician because you, especially for the cassette in the unit, you can find more setting and checking in this remote controller. This is the debugging remote controller. I-feel function. Actually, for I-feel function, if you allergize, it will allergize the I-feel function. That means the unit will use the temperature sensor in the remote as the ambient temperature sensor. Yeah, because for the I-feel function, normally the remote controller you put very close to you, right? Just at your hand, or you put on you just put onto your table. So actually, the ambience detection for this area will be more precise for the room. Okay, so the unit running will be more comfort. Every 10 minutes, the remote will send back the temperature value to the indoor unit as a feedback. Sorry, hello, my friends, could you just mute your microphone? Okay, thank you. Thank you. We continue our training. Next one is the child lock. To avoid some misoperation by the child, press this button up and down simultaneously to activate the child lock, and this icon will be displayed. Okay, and then every operation, if the child lock is activated, every operation is invalid to avoid misoperation by the child. Next one is the checking for the ambient temperature. You can see here, these two icons. This one is the indoor. You can see there is a thermometer in the room. Indoor, ambient temperature checking. This is outdoor. Okay. You can just press the temperature button here to check the value. Next one is master indoor unit setting by the remote. For the wide controller, the master setting is very easy. Press the mode function, mode button for 5 seconds, and then it is done. However, for the cassette, there is no wide controller. You have to use the remote, right? So first, set to fan mode and change the temperature to 30 degrees Celsius. And then press down, up, down, up, down, up 3 times. Down, up, down, up, down 3 times. Okay, and then you can see the UC codes display on the cassette, or the receiver. Okay, that means the master setting is done by this operation. So for the debugging remote, here is the parameter checking method. So the first one, make sure the unit is off or standby, and then press this button, modes and temperature simultaneously, and then this icon, space heating, blink 3 times, and then press mode temperature button simultaneous, and then this icon will blink for 3 times. That means the debugging function is off. Okay. So when you press mode and temperature button simultaneously, and then you press the clock button for 5 seconds to enter the parameter checking menu, and then C00 will display in the temperature zone. That means now you can check the parameter, and you can just up and down to select the parameter. Okay, press mode to enter the second level menu, and press temperature button to confirm. Okay, for this operation, you can just read by yourself. Okay, follow this step. It's very easy. Right? It is very easy. And for the parameter setting, it's similar. Press mode and temperature button, and then you can see this icon blink. That means the debugging function is on, and then press clock 5 seconds, and you can see the C00. That means checking. However, if you want to shift to the setting, press the clock for another 5 seconds. This step is different with the previous. And then you can see the P00. That means program setting is activated. And then you can just change the value and press the temperature button to confirm and to exit. Okay. And for the debugging remote is very useful for your engineer and technician, especially some job related with the cassette. Yeah, it's very useful. Okay, that's the second part, remote controller. The next part is the central controller. Okay, for VIF, the central controller is almost necessary to improve the management of the whole system. And for the central controller, now is applicable for GMV5, GMV6, Slim, or Mini CAN protocol units. Can use this one, CE53. Okay. However, except for CE53, currently we have 3 central controllers. The first one is 7-inch. The maximum quantity is 32. Yeah, not a lot, just 32 in the units maximum. For the system quantity is 16, and with the timer, counting the timer. For the e-control function, that's the special e-control function only for CE53, only this central controller. It has the e-control function. E-control is, you can consider is a preset. Okay, preset. That means you can preset all of the settings such as mode, the temperature setting, speed, and then you just press the E control button and make the unit run as you preset. It's very convenient for the control. Second one is the C52, a larger 7-inch central controller. The maximum quantity 255 Indo units. Here the limit is bigger. Yeah, it's bigger for the size of your project. However, without e-control function, this one. The next one is 4.3-inch central controller. It's only for GMV5. For the quantity, maximum 32. Okay, system 16. However, this central controller only has the waking timer, no calendar. Okay, that's the difference. In this table, the most power central controller is this one, because for C52 not only support GMV5, also frame match, LCAC, the U-match, RAC, split unit, all of them you can use the C52 to control them. However, for these two, only for GMV units, yeah, only for VIF. Okay. And for the connection, you can connect the central controller to the Indo unit side, to the last Indo unit, and connects with the matching resistance. This resistance is very important. A lot of communication error and display error Indo units cannot find is caused by the resistor, the matching resistor. Okay, so do not forget this resistor when you install the central controller to the last Indo unit. Okay, that's the first method. The second one, connect to the auto units. If there are multiple systems you want to control by one central controller, connect to the G1, G2 terminal. And also just remember, for different systems, there should be address setting. You can operate on the SA2, okay, SA2 system address setting to differentiate each system to avoid the address conflicts for each system. Okay, that's the second wiring method. However, if you use a heat recovery unit, the central controller, you can connect by the multi exchanger, right? Multi exchanger D1, D2. Yeah. Also the last multi exchanger, okay, D1, D2, and connects with the resistor. Just for the heat recovery unit. And when you disassemble the central controller, there are 3 parts. Okay, and for the input, this is power. This is for the VIF, G1, G2 for VIF. This is for fire alarm. And this one is for the LCAC, U-match, split, RAC, and frame match, super frame match, something like that for this. And this is reserved. This port is reserved and no function right now. Okay, for VIF, use G1, G2 terminal. So after you install the central controller, you power on the unit, and then you can see this page. That's the menu display. Here is the Indo unit display, water or fresh air. Okay, and date and time in this area. This is E-control preset. Here is the setting. And okay, this page is only for CE53. If the other central controller, the pages may be a little bit different. So for example, okay, this one is C52. This one is the C53. There is E-control function. However, this one is the C52 without E-control function. However, you can see the units can be supported more units. VIF right? And LCAC and split, yeah. And if you want to change the setting of this central controller, press this gear button, and then you can see here lots of settings such as the sound, the press sound, language. Now this central controller can support the English, Spanish, Portuguese, Turkish, Deutsch, okay, around 8 or 10 different languages. You can just select the language by yourself here. And this is the temperature unit, Celsius and Fahrenheit. Practice, adjust and backside time. Okay. Another one is a project setting, such as the Indo units register. For example, there are many Indo units. However, you just want to control some of them, not all of the Indo units, right? You know, this is depends on the customer. Yeah, if they have this special requirement, you can just first select the Indo units, and then press here to confirm to register the units you select. Okay. If the units is registered, then that units will be displayed on your central controller. If not registered, then that unit will not be displayed on the central controller. Okay, and this is a choice for your selection. And this is the setting for one unit. Temperature change, running mode, fan speed, and swing. Okay, and advanced. Here are more settings you can find. Click press the advanced, and you can see the sleep, quiet, e-heater, absence, and some shield operation here. Okay, this part is very useful for the central controller management to shield some operation on the wired controller, especially for some apartment and office to avoid the operation by the other peoples. And next one, you can see here, all control. If you if you press here, you can control all of the units connects with this central controller. Yeah, all of the units. You can just change the value, change the setting here to change them all at the same time. Yeah. So this is very good for a very big project to change all of the Indo unit setting, just the one operation. However, for split and free match, you match only for the all control, only on off. Yeah, only on off. Next one, group control. So for the group control, you can define how many Indo units in this group. You can define the name and choose different icon to help you to differentiate that group and choose the corresponding Indo units to add them to the group. And next one, e-control function, C53. That's a special function for that. And for e-control, you can just preset a lot of running modes, such as sleep. So, for example, running mode, okay, and also the setting temperature. Then you just preset them and press this button to start the e-control. So if you want to sleep mode, right, you just press here to start it. That means the running mode is not only cooling, heating. You can just define the running mode with different temperature setting and speed, fan speed, and all of them is defined by yourself. Yeah, and then you just use this preset running mode and then make it run as you wish. Next one is a schedule function, schedule control function. Okay, for the schedule you can edit the starting time and off time, and the name of the schedule, and also the repeat. Yeah, repeat. Which day to repeat, or maybe skip some day. Yeah, exception setting. Exception is for the skip for that day. Repeats is for the repeating running. However, this is more setting for the schedule. Okay. For the repeat setting, every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that's also defined by yourself. Yeah. And next one here, calendar. You can choose the date in the calendar. Okay. Okay, my friends, that's all of the introduction for the GMV controller about the wired, remote, and the central controller. So, do you have any question about this presentation?
No, for me it's clear.
Okay, for you it's clear. How about the other guys? Hello? For the other friends, do you have any question about the controller part?
No, thank you. No questions.
Okay. So if no question, that means my presentation is quite clear for you. Okay. No worry. If you want to review this presentation later, I will share of the training material to our sales manager. You can contact them to get the copy. Okay.
Perfect, Lulu. Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay. No question. If no more question, I think for this training for today is finished because the time is almost about 9:30 p.m. It's the evening. Okay, so our training for today is finished. Thanks for your participation. Okay. Bye bye.
Good night.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye, thanks.
Good night.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye. You're welcome.